Jeremy Miller. I know we all remember him from Growing Pains and much, much more. Jeremy, thanks for stopping by. I'm so excited about this conversation. And you know what? It's people never forgot the show, have they? And they continue to talk about it all the time.
No, they certainly haven't. I do a lot of the autograph sightings, not a lot, but a few every year. And man, the fans have not forgotten. They still remember the show incredibly fondly. And they're showing it to the new generations. I met kids who are barely 8, 9, 10 years old who are falling in love with the show. So it's pretty cool.
And that's the cool thing about it. It lives on forever and in so many ways. And you have so many fond members. Well, I wanted to just jump. First of all, how did you get the gig? Tell us about how that happened.
I actually just booked the gig as a random audition. They did what we call a cattle call, which is where they just call every kid in the area. So I think there was between 200 and 300 kids who came in and read that they were bringing in to audition. And I went in and I was just a kid. I didn't even get to reading the lines. I went in and just started telling jokes and doing these dolphin impressions I would do because my voice was so high back then. And I was just being a kid. And apparently that's what got me the job. I never actually read the lines in my audition. And the producers to this day will tell you that's what got me the job, is I was able to just come in there and be a real kid. And that's what they wanted for the role.
Interesting. And so did you have a lot of acting experience before that audition?
I did, actually. I had started auditioning when I was 5, and I went out on over 450 some odd auditions. I booked a commercial in my first 10 auditions with McDonald's, and then went dry for about 2.5 years. But when it started rolling, it really started rolling. During those 450 auditions, I was going down to the final 4 kids or the final 2 kids for the part every time, but I wasn't getting hired. So all of a sudden, it started rolling. I booked a guest spot on Diff'rent Strokes, guest spot on Punky Brewster, then Charles in Charge, then Pryor's Place, which was Richard Pryor's children's show he had on Saturday mornings, and then a TV movie called Deceptions, a feature film called Emanon, and then Growing Pains. And all of that happened inside of about a year to a year and a half. It just started rolling. So by the time I got Growing Pains, yes, I'd shot 2 movies and had been a guest star on multiple shows.
Let's talk about work ethic in so many ways, Jeremy. And I think it's important to look at that in so many ways. Your work ethic is just, it had to been there, right? To get to book all those roles. Did you put a lot of effort at a young age into acting?
Absolutely. I always say that it definitely was a sacrifice. You sacrifice a lot of your childhood. My average day was get off school at 2:00, jump in the car with my brother in my mom's car. She would drive us to auditions all day long, all afternoon, while we did homework in the car. And then as soon as we got there, we'd work on the sides, work on the lines. And then sometimes we had up to, because it was both me and my brother auditioning, we'd have up to 5 auditions in a day. Not each, of course, but 5 auditions we'd have to shuttle to at different places throughout the city. And then we'd drive home, 1.5, 2 hours home, wouldn't get home till 8:30, 9 o'clock, finish whatever homework we had, go to bed, rinse and repeat every single day. So it's a grind. And yeah, there is definitely a work ethic there, but I was lucky in that it never really felt like work for me. I loved it. I fell in love with it. So I loved the process. I loved the auditioning. I loved the whole thing.
So you land your big show. Now the process is you have an unbelievable all-star cast, especially now if we look back. But at that time, were you thinking Growing Pains was going to be this big a show?
No, I don't think any of us really knew how big Growing Pains could be. We thought the show was good. We saw, after we filmed the pilot, we saw the pilot done and completed, and we all really enjoyed it, but you just never know. And my mom and my grandmother were real good at keeping me grounded and not letting us get ahead of ourselves. Until we got the call that the series was actually moving forwards, we didn't think anything was going to happen. And then once it did, and we started shooting the first season, and we started seeing the reaction of the fans and the ratings and that people were enjoying it, there was that feeling of, wow, this might be something special. But still, even then, it's only first season. We had no idea the level of success we would get. 7 full seasons, 3.5, 4 of those, we were in the top 5 every single week, battling it out with Cosby and Monday Night Football for the top spot. And we were I think 2.5 years in a row, the highest rated show on ABC every single week. It was an honor. And I don't think any of us really saw it. We thought it was possible after seeing how well the first season went.
How known were the actors when the show started?
When they started, only Alan was really well known because of his talk show and because of some of the other work he had done. But even then, that's the funny thing. When I booked Growing Pains, I actually booked 2 shows at the same time. There was a show called Fathers and Sons with Merlin Olsen and, I can't remember, a couple other really wonderful actors and actresses. And basically, they wanted me to come in to screen test for both shows. And you can't do that. You have to make a choice, because once you screen test, you are signing the contracts and you are agreeing to do the project. Everybody else, my agent, everybody in the business wanted me to take Fathers and Sons. It was on NBC, which at the time NBC was ruling the networks. Merlin Olsen was a much bigger name than Alan or anybody else on our show, and everyone wanted me to take Fathers and Sons. My grandmother and my mother were the ones who said, well, we just have a feeling that we need to take Growing Pains. And look what happened. Fathers and Sons was a good show, but it only got a season and a half, I think. And my good friend Andre Gower, who him and I constantly auditioned together, was the kid on that who got the role. And then I ended up not through sheer luck, but through that decision of my mom and my grandmother, we ended up taking Growing Pains and just being a part of something really special.
And I got the opportunity to talk to Alan on an interview years ago before he passed away. And it's amazing. And I've talked to Kirk. So I've had an opportunity to talk to what do you think? Let's talk about, who do you think was your best mentor on the show that you learned the most from as an actor?
I would say Alan was definitely my biggest mentor. He took the time to actually guide me a little bit in my acting skills. None of the cast, and this is not a knock on any of them, it wasn't their job to, but none of the cast really did that for me except for Alan. And just seeing how talented he was, even without him taking the time and setting it aside to help me, I knew to watch him. I knew to study what he was doing, how he handled himself, how he approached the job. He was such a consummate professional, but he enjoyed himself still. So I, at a very young age, started watching Alan and learning from him.
And that's the amazing thing of learning from somebody and learning your acting and getting that many years to be part of the show. It got better. It got easier and easier, right?
It did. Well, it did, especially the more chemistry we built, the more we got used to each other's cadences and timing and everything else. As that kept building, I think you see in the end of the second season, come the third season, is where we really peaked, writing-wise, acting-wise, camaraderie and chemistry-wise. Not that it wasn't good at other times, but I think that third season going into the fourth season was really where all of that kind of hit its zenith.
How were you guys as a family? Like being doing a show for so many years?
Oh, big time family. All up in each other's business. Definitely bickered and fought at different times. Nothing gigantic, but like a family. We had our disagreements and moments of being annoyed with the others, but we love each other and still do. That was my family for 7 years, and they were there for me through absolutely everything. I looked forward to getting on set every year when we were starting back up to get to see my family again. And that went for the crew, that went for the cast, that went for everybody who worked on our show.
What would you say is your fondest moment time being on the show? Like you could share for the fans, Growing Pains.
Honestly, my favorite moments always revolve around us getting to do things as a family, as a group. The first one that really stands out is when we went to Hawaii. the Hawaii episode. And given going to Hawaii was just amazing, but we all brought our families. You know, my brother came with, and my mom and my little cousin who we were taking care of. And Tracy brought all her sisters. Kirk brought his sisters. Our director brought his kid. Everybody brought family. And yes, we were working and we were filming, but all of our off time was spent together, enjoying just time together and enjoying getting to be on vacation in Hawaii. So that was really special. Not just because we were there, but again, because all of us who were able to go brought our families, and we all got that kind of long bonding together as well.
And I think these family shows that now are living in infamy and years. So think about the Waltons, think about specific other shows. They're rock stars still. You guys are definitely rock stars. That we just don't have that family television anymore. Bring up the Cosbys too, bringing up different shows that really people wish that they can have a family like your family. They wish they could have had a family like the Cosby family. They wish they could have had a family like the Waltons. And
absolutely,
I think that maybe producers are missing the boat, wanting chaos and crisis versus having something that's has something that's solved but still feels really good. The relationship.
See, I agree. That's been my opinion for a while. I get a lot of people of our generation, of the following generation, who miss that style of television. And I've said it many times before, this is nothing against either of these shows, but Married with Children and Roseanne were the death of the classic family television show. The classic family sitcom. Brilliant shows. I enjoyed them. I watched them religiously. I loved those shows. But they introduced dysfunction into the family sitcom. And we've never gone back, unfortunately. We don't have the ideal anymore. You know what I mean? It's all, they try and make families as real and dysfunctional as possible. And personally, I think people want to watch something that gives them a little escapism. They loved that ideal where they could look at and go, that's what I'd like my family to be like. We don't have that anymore because they're so realistic. They try and be more like what a regular family is, and most families have quite a lot of dysfunction. So I hold nothing against those shows, but they definitely were the beginning of the end. If you look at the timeline that came before and after.
Do you think, just looking back at this, do you think because of that, you talked about younger kids watching your show now, that people are flocking to those shows still on reruns in different places?
I think they are. I think you see it with the popularity that Full House got in reruns and their bounce back they got with the Whole New Generation, which spurred on the reboot show. Fans really do, especially the kids, they're connecting with it still. So I believe there really is a market for those kind of shows. We can get back to it and people will love it. I think people want that kind of thing.
So after you were done, did you guys have a reunion show after that?
We did 2 reunion movies. The first one we shot in Montreal, actually, and the second one we shot in Louisiana. And that one was really special in that, A, just getting to be together again, but B, that's where I met my fiance and also reconnected with my very dear friend Brandon, Dr. Brandon, who I wrote my book with. And I hadn't seen him in over, I think, 12 or 15 years at that point. And I met my beautiful fiance. So that was a very special trip.
It sounds absolutely. Life after Growing Pains. Was that a challenge for you? I talked to NFL stars, talked to all these different people. The transition, especially at that time where I think typecasting was a lot different. A lot of people were able to move on from one character to the next character as a child actor differently than your time, in my opinion. I think people were able to, it's probably because there's so many different streaming shows now and so many different options. You can move on easier. It was much more difficult at that time when there was only a few channels.
I would agree. When you only had the 3 and then 4 channels, typecasting was a bigger issue. I didn't run into as much of that. I really didn't. I came again after Growing Pains. I came right down to the wire on so many things. Sequest, which starred, I'm blanking on his name, from Jaws, Scheider. And my dear friend Jonathan Brandis actually got that role. But it was down to him and I for that show. I was this close to getting hired onto Days of Our Lives right after Growing Pains. I would have literally gone from Growing Pains and then 2 weeks later started on Days of Our Lives. Unfortunately, because I got hired basically on the spot, and they decided not to introduce the character. The whole storyline changed like in the weeks before I was supposed to start filming, and they decided they weren't introducing this character into the show. So again, I was right. I would have been a part of Days of Our Lives and gone right from Growing Pains into that. So I didn't deal with a huge amount of typecasting right away. My biggest problem was self-made, in that when I got to college, I decided to take a break. I went to USC for drama, and they did not allow freshmen to audition while they were in school. That was part of their rule. You had to agree not to audition so that you could focus on your freshman year. So I agreed to that, and I decided to take a little break. And that was a mistake. The door was open for me at that point, and people were very interested. And after I took my break for a couple of years, that door had shut, and I started having to really pound on it to get it to open again. So that was definitely a bit of a mistake career-wise, looking back. But that was on me. That wasn't as much of a typecasting thing or anything else. And then soon after that, I really started dealing with my alcoholism. That impacted my auditions and things like that as well. A lot of what slowed me down was of my own making.
So the alcoholism, did that stem as a child actor, or just from stress of life, or just it goes back?
There's definitely a genetic component with me. I've never had an off switch. The story goes, when I was 4.5, I would run around after my grandparents' parties and finish off all the beers. And unlike other 4-year-olds who would do that and go, ew, I would just keep going. I never had an off switch. When I was 10.5, 11 years old, had another big drinking opportunity. And again, I just went all day long, got sick, and went right back to the cooler. Never had an off switch. So I truly believe there is a genetic component to it, that I was a little predispositioned, because that's not normal. Normal kids don't just keep going back and have 30 beers throughout the day, even when they feel like crap. So there was something there always. But I grew up in a household, my grandparents were functional alcoholics, very typical 70s functional alcoholics. So I didn't see anything wrong with it. In the way I was raised, hey, the more you could drink and still function and get everything you needed to get done, that meant you were a man. That was the era and the way I was raised to think about it. It definitely progressed quickly. And it mostly came, when it started progressing, it was from my anxiety. I have a social anxiety disorder, a pretty severe one. And I found that alcohol was the perfect medicine at that time. It gave me that liquid courage to go out in social situations, which I had to do a lot of back then. There were a lot of PR events. There were a lot of parties. There were a lot of things where I had to schmooze and talk to people and be what I always call flip the switch and be on. And that was real difficult with my anxiety disorder. So once I discovered alcohol as a smoothing over agent for that, it was off to the races.
That's huge. I mean, that happened. Okay, so how did you overcome this? Because social anxiety, having the alcohol problem cost you probably jobs and opportunity and acting. How did you beat it?
It took a very long time, actually. I started realizing I was having issues. I had a couple of very nasty experiences, nothing violent, nothing like that, but a couple that I was very lucky to survive. And I realized I needed help. So I started looking into 12-step and rehab and all these different things. And over the years, over about a 4-year period, I tried all of them. And I couldn't make them work for me. I don't take anything away from those programs. I have friends who've gotten help with every one of those modalities. They all work for different people. There's not one thing that works for absolutely everybody. But I couldn't make them work. I couldn't get past that craving. So, miracle of miracles, My mom found this program that started in Australia that was using a medicine to actually help block your cravings for alcohol. And the name is naltrexone. It's the same medicine that they use in the opiate overdose spray, naloxone. It's one of the ingredients in that, but it works on the same part of our brain that has the center for the alcohol cravings. I went and I had this procedure done. They put this little biodegradable medicine pill into my abdomen, into the fatty tissue there, and it just dissolved over about 3 to 6 months. And during that time, it blocked. It was like someone flipped off the light switch. It was that drastic. That constant, I have to have it, I need it, go get it. It was gone. It just disappeared. And it was the exact tool I needed to get over the hurdle and start actually doing the work of recovery.
So you overcame that. Tell us your latest projects, what's going on with you. I know you're doing events like signings. That's the greatest thing I think has happened to a lot of, is the opportunity to go out and meet the fans and keep your brand going, which was not available years ago with, I guess you call them the Comic-Cons or Comic wherever it starts. I used to be in Pittsburgh Steel City. Now I'm here Cleveland, and I'm going to probably cover this one coming up, I hope. That's coming in a couple weeks to Cleveland. These are just great events to meet your fans, aren't they?
They are, and that's really my favorite part of it. It's great to sell a little merchandise and to sign photos and do everything else, but getting to meet the fans, getting to hear their stories about why the show was important to them, where they were when they saw this episode, or what they were dealing with at that time of their life. That's really special, getting to have that connection with people going on 40 years later now. It's just a really special thing to have and to get to sit there and do. And like you said, it helps also to keep your name out there, to keep your brand going and to let people know, hey, I'm still here and I'm still doing it. I'm still doing films and TV shows. I just finished the second season of a TV show that's on BET streaming. The show's called Angel. It is a police street crime drama. I play the lead detective's partner, and I'm in one episode of the first season. I think first season was only 3 episodes. It's available on BET streaming, but second season's supposed to drop in a month or 2, and it's a really good season. I am very proud of this work we did. I'm really hoping everybody gets a chance to watch it. So I'm in I think at least 7 of the 8 episodes in season 2. And it was a blast to do. I got to work with a lot of really great actors and actresses. My partner is actually the extremely legendary MC Light, and she is an amazing actress as well. I didn't know what to expect when I heard that it was her, because she's an amazing musician and artist. I didn't know she had the acting chops, and she's really good. So it was a fun experience. But yeah, I'm still working, still doing that. That whole season should be dropping in a couple of months. And I've got a couple of independent films I'm working on that we're hoping to be in production by the end of the year. So I'm staying busy.
See, that's the thing people don't understand. Just because there's so many streaming opportunities, I hope we start dropping more stuff again, dealing with the actor strike, the writer strike, Teamster strike, all these different things. Hopefully content's coming back huge. That's my hope, because
I hope so too.
Yeah.
It seems like people are starting to hustle again. Things are starting to move. The wheels are starting to turn again. As with any business, the last piece to fall into place is for the money people to come back.
And that they'll come back when they can make money.
Exactly. And I think we're starting to see that.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to say, Jeremy, is you're still a young guy. You never know. Some of these people didn't start. How old was Samuel L. Jackson when he first started acting? Yeah.
I love it, and I'm never going to stop. I just keep plugging away. Look at Tom Hanks. Tom went through a 20-year stretch of living in obscurity, essentially, and finally got that opportunity and made the most of it. So I love what I do. I'm certainly not... I've had large amounts of fame. I've been there. I've done that. I just love working in the business. I love creating entertainment that people love. And getting to do that is a privilege and a blessing.
My work does in my agency, and my work interviewing people doesn't, I don't work at any day. I wouldn't consider it work. Except we can get too addicted to it. All right. So last question is question shout out. my co-host who could not make it, Greg Hanna of Toss C3. He asked this question. It's the first time I've ever asked this. Okay, so Jeremy, be ready for this question.
All right.
Take your thing. What is the most important thing in life you ever learned?
The most important thing in life I ever learned. Truly, it took me a long time to learn it, especially because of my anxiety disorder. But the most important thing I've ever learned is don't be afraid. Just do not be afraid to do it. The worst that can happen is you fall on your face. Big deal. You get up, you pick yourself up, and you keep going. But don't be afraid to do it. And I was for so many years. I was filled with so much anxiety and so much fear that I missed out on a lot of opportunities in life. So if I've learned anything in 48 years, it's don't be afraid. Just freaking do it anyway.
And I think this is the greatest opportunity in the world for anyone in any career. But what's at our fingertips and opportunities, from streaming to AI to everything. We could utilize so many things to be able to take that one step to fame. Best place we can connect with you. Where can we go?
The best and easiest to just go to my website. It's it's jeremyjamesmiller.com. That has all my social media stuff, all my projects I'm working on. It has all my links to anything I'm doing, as well as the social media links. So that's the easiest way. jeremyjamesmiller.com.
Got yard waste? Drop it off hassle-free at the Bethel Park Municipal Public Works Building from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on select Saturdays. What does yard waste mean? Grass clippings, shrubbery trimmings, tree branches, and leaves. Grass and leaves should be placed in paper bags only. No plastic bags, please. For tree branches, the maximum sizes accepted are 4 inches in diameter and 36 inches long. We will not accept whole trees that have been cut down or entire truckloads of branches. We hope this helps as you begin cleaning your yard during the upcoming spring and summer season. Let's keep our community clean and green. Mark your calendar and spread the word.
Live from the Grotto, Greg Hanna. Greg, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing pretty fantastic, and I'm pretty excited to talk to one of my favorite, at least sitcom, municipal workers.
So Jim O'Hare joins the program. We all know him from Parks and Rec and many other things. Jim, thanks for stopping by.
Let me ask you, Jim, real quick. So that show was hilarious. It's got to be a lot of improv there. What's the hardest that you guys laughed on set?
First of all, every day we did this thing called a fun run after every time we finished with the scene. So if everybody was happy with it, the director and the writer and everybody, they would say, okay, fun run. And that meant we could do whatever the hell we wanted. And so I can tell you every single day was laughter because you're putting improvisers together to have fun. And that's what it was. It was just fun. But I would say one of the all-time infamous bloopers that made us laugh, and it's all over the internet. All you got to do is say Chris Pratt and Kim Kardashian and go to YouTube and you will see that blooper. And so I just said, somebody told me recently it's labeled the #1 blooper ever. So if you haven't seen it, go there. It's a little descriptive. I won't get into exactly what was said, but let's just say we lost it. We lost it big time.
You worked with one of the most all-star casts. I look at just a clip that he was on where you were doing a television interview for your book, and who was in that room. You worked with some unbelievable actors on that show.
To this day, not just the amazing cast, because think about it, we had Amy Poehler, Nick Offerman, Chris Pratt, Rob Lowe, Adam Scott, all these people have done such amazing things before and after Parks, and Retta and Aziz and Aubrey Plaza, like Rashida Jones, just these amazing people. But then we had Bill Murray on the show. We had Catherine Hahn on the show. We had Mrs. Obama on the show. It was really crazy when I look back and I think about some of the days that I would be on set and there would be these people that I'd only dreamed about ever meeting, and here I am working with them. I am forever grateful for that. I never take that for granted.
Wow.
If you had to pick your one favorite Jerry moment, what would it be?
There's a lot of crazy Jerry moments. I think Amy Poehler was very protective of all of us. She was very much the mother of the set. And so the reason I bring that up is, so we're at the table read, and it was the episode, it's called Park Safety, season 2. And as we're reading the script, in the script, Jerry pretends that he has been mugged because he's so afraid that his office mates are going to mock him for what really happened, which was he fell into a creek because he dropped his burrito. It was a whole Jerry thing. So, Leslie says to everybody, okay, we got to be good to Jerry. He's been mugged. He's coming in. He's about to do a presentation. Nobody say anything. So, of course, the presentation goes horribly wrong. Jerry trips. He falls, he bends over, his pants rip, he farts. To me, I could do that kind of stuff all day long. But the reason I bring up the Amy thing was she had said after the table read, Jim, are you comfortable with that, doing that? And I said, Amy, I was born for that. So that type of stuff, whenever they gave me the opportunity, but that one in particular scene sticks with me, especially because we had so much fun shooting it, and because they have to pre-split your pants, they have to do a lot of things to make it happen. And at one point, Amy had said, you know what, I can't laugh anymore. I'm done. She was just like, you can't make me laugh anymore, which to me, that's a challenge. So then I had actually set up to do one of the takes without underwear on. So when I split the pants, they were going to get more than just this crazy thing. It never officially happened because right before I did it, the director had heard I was going to do it. And he goes, cut. And he comes in and he's like, Jim, do you have underwear on? I said, I do not. He said, please don't do this. We had lawyers here last week because of Pratt. Because just the previous week, Pratt had done a scene with Amy and Rashida where he was supposed to be naked. And normally you wear like a dance belt or like cover things up. He just went naked, which was hysterical, by the way. Of course, that was hysterical, but somehow lawyers ended up at his trailer saying, you can't do this type of thing. And he got like an official warning. So the director was basically saying to me, Jim, don't do this. We've been in enough trouble. So I didn't get to do it, but I told everybody and then they laughed. But I didn't get to do it.
So before Parks and Rec, and then getting this opportunity, I want you to take us back to where you think your biggest roles were before Parks and Rec, and then how did you get the gig?
The roles before, Nick Offerman and I would always say we were very much journeyman actors. We were the guys getting the guest spots, getting the pilot that doesn't go anywhere because most pilots don't. So I was very lucky. Like I moved to Los Angeles in '94. And I've never worked another job other than being an actor. And believe me, some years were tougher than others. But there was always work. So as far as probably the most, it's weird because I'm known as a comedy guy. But I got to do an episode of Diagnosis Murder with Dick Van Dyke. And I played the most vile, disgusting serial killer. And I loved it. I thought that was the greatest thing. Number one, because it was taking me away from what people know me as. But also just as an actor, I'm an actor. I love doing all of it, comedy, drama, whatever. And so that one kind of opened doors that weren't open because people saw me as more than just the wacky neighbor or the best friend, the fat best friend. He's not just that guy. So that was an important booking. I was really happy with that. And then with Parks, the word got out that this untitled Amy Poehler project was going to be happening, and there was a lot of juice around it because for a number of reasons. Number one, Amy Poehler, and number two, it was from the guys who created The Office, and we know what happened to The Office, and so everybody wanted in. And I initially went in to read for Ron Swanson, which ultimately was played by the brilliant genius, nobody could have done it better, Nick Offerman. But that is what I initially went in for. And I did my version of Ron Swanson, whatever that was, and they liked it enough that when it came time to start filling out other roles, they called me in for Jerry. And what was a little nerve-wracking is generally when I go to an audition, I know who's going to be there, who my competition's going to be. It's going to be guys that look like me. They have a character in their head of what they're thinking. But I showed up to the audition space, and it was everybody. It was fat guys, skinny guys, tall guys, short guys, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. Like, they did not know what they were looking for, which that was kind of weird. And then I was trying to figure out, I'm like, does this help me or hurt me? My chances. And then I realized I think it hurts me because they have nothing, like, at least if they've narrowed it down to the fat white guy. Okay, we've narrowed it down to my little group. But then something in that room, I felt like I did a good job. The Jerry character didn't even exist. They had to make up material for me to audition with because it did not exist, because they didn't know what Jerry was going to be. And I go and I do the audition. I felt good about it, as good as you can. And then a couple weeks later, I got the call that they booked me. And the call also came with a caveat from my agents, because they said to me, Jim, they're being very honest with us, and they don't know what this role is. And there's going to be a lot of sitting around. And at this point in my career, there's nothing wrong with being a background actor. But at that point in my career, I was past doing that. I was doing guest spots and supporting roles in films. And so basically my agents were saying, we don't think you should, not we don't think you should, we think you should really think about this, about whether you want to take this. But for me, Neil, it was a no-brainer, because I saw what happened to the supposed background players on The Office, because I'm a big Office fan. And I saw what happened to Phyllis and Kevin and Oscar and Meredith and all those amazing characters. So I'm like, oh no, I'm in. Let's give this a shot. And they put me at a desk. And then I find out later, because the whole time I'm worried, am I going to be let go? Are they keeping me around? I never knew what was happening at the beginning. And then I find out later that Greg Daniels, who I interviewed for my book, he said, we always knew you were sticking around, because he had said to somebody, put him at a desk. He's funny. Put him at a desk. It'll work out. And so that's how I got the role of Jerry. And every season it became more and more, which was quite the gift.
Jim, that's awesome. Hey, let's call this one a dream sitcom crossover. So if Jerry or Larry or Gary, could pop up in another sitcom, either in the past or one present.
Yeah.
Wow. Hilarious. Which one would you love to be a part of?
Oh boy, because I'm a big sitcom guy. I love a sitcom. I love a good sitcom. Oh boy. I don't know what he could do, but I'd love to run into Jerry and Elaine and Kramer and George. Yeah. That would be interesting. Maybe I could screw something up with them. I'm also a little obsessed with 30 Rock. I don't know if you guys are 30 Rock fans, but I would love to have been involved.
I'm a huge fan.
Isn't that a great?
Because I guess the media side of it, I love it that way.
Yeah, sure.
You get to see the behind the scenes and the whole thing. But
I love behind the scenes.
That was an all-star cast.
Oh, totally all-star. And I recently shot a commercial for Canva with me and John Lovitz, who played Lovitz on 30 Rock. And the premise was, because we were both the Office punching bags. And so with using Canva, we've become the Office superstars. So it was I think it's out there now. I think it's actually airing now. But so yeah, 30 Rock. And boy, but I go back to the old days. Oh my God, Cheers. Like somehow to be on Cheers. I can't even imagine what Jerry would be doing, but that would be amazing. Wow, Married Tyler Moore, all those great shows. Archie, All in the Family. Yeah, I'd love to be on all of them now that I think about it.
Cool.
See, Greg, that's an amazing question. I'm sure you have a follow-up from that, Greg.
It would actually be if you could create your own show and you star in it as your own show, what would it be? Who would you cast? And what other co-stars would you have along with you?
Here's what I'll say about that. Because many people have said, man, wouldn't you love your own show? No. What I love, what I have always loved and continue to love is an ensemble show. But yeah, I mean, say I would, like in our show, Parks and Rec, we were an ensemble, but you had Amy Poehler as Leslie Knope was certainly the lead. So I guess if it was that kind of show, wow, my dream cast. Oh boy, I just want to bring the Parks cast back together. But if it has to be people outside of Parks, wow. First of all, I go back to some of my favorite shows. I think Alec Baldwin is a brilliant comedic actor. The stuff he did on Will and Grace, the stuff he did on 30 Rock, I'd love to work with him.
Oh, I would too. Yeah.
Oh my God.
My show. You're getting Greg and I. We have a list. I'd love to interview because they're so amazing to have those conversations with, the stories.
And so many stories behind the scenes and stuff. Yeah. Also, there's an actress, and she was on Parks and Rec. She recurred called Joan, and she played Joan Calamezzo. Her name is Mo Collins. I would love to do a show with Mo Collins. Yeah, there's the list. The list is endless. But yes, I'd love to do another ensemble show. I love the ensemble feel, which, like a Cheers, that's an ensemble show. MASH, these are shows where everybody was important. It wasn't just the one. So yeah, I don't know if it's because I don't want the pressure of being like the face of a show, but I think there's nothing better than ensemble.
I'd love to see Jerry stumble onto Get Smart, like from when we were kids.
Putting up the phone, putting up the shoe to his ear. Yes, I would love that. And Agent 99 might have, she might give Gail a run for her money. Yeah.
That's right.
So after Parks and Recs was finished, that is, you get this, your dream show. What do you do next? We're going to get to the book, I'm sure, at that point, but I'm just really intrigued because it's like I talk to so many athletes, move on. What do you do next? Or you have this big one role.
Yeah.
I was talking to Jeremy Miller and he literally said, did I get typecast? And he said, not at first, but then later I did. That it's hard when you get that show, that dream show.
It's exciting when it's ending. It's sad because it was such a great experience. So, like, I've been on shows where I couldn't wait till they were over. It was like, okay, see ya. Parks was not that. It was nothing but tears, and it was a mess when we were leaving. But yes, there was a concern. Am I now Jerry for the rest of my life? Which was it? Which is that weird, would be a good thing, bad thing. Like if that had happened, if I could never work again because I'm Jerry, that would have sucked. Just because I love working, I love being on set. Anyone who knows me knows my happy place is a soundstage. So that would have been tough if there was no more work after that. On the other hand, if Jerry Gergich is who I am known for, and really will always be known for that role, but like I couldn't do anything else, it's not a bad role to go out on. He was a pretty great guy and on a really great show. That being said, so Parks ended, and it's, what do I do? So we're getting lots of offers, comedy. Again, great, love comedy. It's paid my bills for a lot of years. But then a friend of mine had written a movie for me many years ago, and it was called Middleman, and it's dark, and a lot goes on in this film. And he had always wanted to make it, but we never had the power to have it happen or the money or anything like that. Then, after Parks, all of a sudden, he's out there pitching it again, and now because of, my notoriety from the show, now there's interest. So some producers came on board, and we shot a film called Middleman right after Parks. And it was, at the time, I've done something tougher since, but it was the toughest show I'd ever shot, the toughest film I'd ever worked on. And I was in, I think, everything but 3 scenes. So this one was all me. I would have got to work with Andy Hawks and Josh McDermott, who's now on Suits at LA, and Andy Dudek. But it's such a dark film. But so we shoot it. It starts making the festivals, and then we start winning. I'm getting Best Actor here, Best Actor there. The film it won the Seattle Film Festival. So it was it was great. It was exactly what I needed to say, I am not Jerry Gergich. I'm Jim O'Heir. I'm an actor. I can play Jerry, but I can also play this crazy bastard on this film called Middleman. And I just recently shot a film in Spain last July, and that was without a doubt the hardest thing I've ever done. Physically, emotionally, across the board, the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's going to start hitting the festivals soon, and the advanced word is it's really good. So I'm really proud of that too. So I don't know. The fear was I would be typecast. I haven't been. I'm sure roles have missed me because they were like, oh, he's Jerry, when the people couldn't see me. And I can't fight that other than put me in a room and let me audition. There was a role I did once, which I know they had turned me down initially because the powers that be said, because somebody mentioned Jim O'Heir, and they said, Jerry from Parks? I don't see it. And then they sent him pieces from the film Middleman, and they said, oh yeah, that's our guy. So what makes me crazy in the business is, God forbid we think people can do more than what they did. You know what I mean? What's his name from Gilligan's Island? Bob Denver.
Yeah.
He'll tell you it destroyed his career. He's Gilligan, and that's silly. He's an actor who can do other stuff. So anyway, it's a long-winded answer to say, yes, I was concerned. Thankfully, I didn't get typecast. And the biggest project I did right after that was just very smart, was a film called Middleman.
Cool.
Boy, can I ramble. I just realized that went on for 5 minutes and you asked one simple...
But you're so good at it. It's still good ramble.
It's interesting.
It's interesting. We get to sit down and watch. Sometimes people pull for no reason, but the answer was fantastic. Intriguing. It's just to know your career and know for fans of yours. Go ahead, Greg. What question you have next?
Not my last question, of course.
Keep going.
Not at all.
Nah.
You well, that's because you're too funny. You've guest starred in, I don't know how many shows over the years, tons of them, right?
Many.
Yeah. Besides,
I think it was Seth. It was either Seth Meyers or Jimmy Kimmel. When I sat down to do one of the interviews, the first thing they said to me, they just looked. They go, "What show haven't you been on?"
Yeah.
So I have been on. I've been on a lot of shows over the years.
No, a ton of them.
Yeah.
Besides Jerry, which I'm sure fans run up to you all the time, was there another supporting role or cameo that you were in where people really recognize you from when they see you in public?
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I played this, what seemed to be at first a very sweet Southern cop who turned out to be just this homophobic piece of. So I get called out on that one. But I will tell you, I had an incident happen not all that long ago, and it's embarrassing. But so this girl comes up to me and she goes, "Jim, I loved you." And I assume it's going to be about Parks because generally it is. And she goes, I said, "Oh, thanks." And she goes, "Yeah, I just loved you in Criminal Minds." And I said, "Oh, you know what? I think you're confusing me with somebody else. I never did a Criminal Minds." And she said, "Yes, you did." I go, "No, I'm sorry, I didn't do." She pulls out her phone, goes to IMDb. "Yes, I did Criminal Minds. Totally forgot about it." And not only in Criminal Minds, it was the penultimate series finale. Like, it was a very important episode of Criminal Minds. So I'm embarrassed, and yet it's the gift that because I work a lot, and that is such a gift that I'm so grateful for that I actually forgot about it. And then as she's pointing out, I'm like, "Oh God, yes, I was Sharon Lawrence's attorney." And anyway, it all came back to me. But I've done a lot of them, and I get recognized from Friends a lot. I did an episode of Friends in their final season, and it's funny because when I did that Friends, I was just there for a week. And David Schwimmer was directing the episode, which I loved when an actor directs because they know what we're looking for. Like, they get it. They're not just about camera angles, which is all important stuff, but they also know what an actor's looking for. So anyway, I remember being there that week, and I had worked with Matt LeBlanc before because we both did a terrible film called Ed many years ago about a monkey playing baseball, and anyway, it was awful. So I show up on set, and Matt's there, and I hadn't seen him in years, and he's, "Oh, what do you, blah, 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 blah." And he introduces me to everybody. He goes, "Hey, Jim was in my movie." Because they had all, when Friends took off, they were being offered everything. It was the hottest show, and these young actors and whatever. So they all ended up doing some pretty bad films. So anyway, but what I took away from that week was, wow, these people, they really are friends. These are people who care about each other. They were having lunch together. And this is after 10 years. This wasn't like the first season and they're all still liking each other. And I remember thinking, oh boy, this is the dream. This job is the dream. Not only is it a good show, but everybody gets along and they really seem to be enjoying themselves. To me, that was the fantasy. And then through whatever miracle, I lived that fantasy for 7 years because that's exactly what I had on Parks. I had these friendships, this quality of work that opened up so many other doors. The doors that it's opened, I'll be forever grateful. Forever grateful.
Phenomenal.
Hey, such great questions, Greg. And I'm going to let you have another one because, and again, Parks and Rec, I can't believe I get them mixed up. I'm sure it's just like Daffy and Donald. I did it with Carmen Kind before. I had the voice of Donald Duck and I said, "Let's welcome the voice of Daffy Duck."
I remember that.
I see, I at least can admit that, but Jim, I can go with the flow. But
I get you.
I'm trying to get the last guest off the air. I'm going live again. I'm like, crunch his number. I could get him on quickly. That's the producer hat I have to wear, not just the.
You're doing it all, Neil. You're doing it all.
But Greg, with I guess one more question before the final.
Yeah, that'd be great. Jerry in Parks and Rec, excuse my dog. Yeah, he had a lot of hidden talents. Great painter, singer, and so on.
Yes.
Do you have any hidden talents that your fans don't know that you feel like sharing?
Wow, hidden talents. Some would say I have no talent. You should read some of the reviews over some of the things I've done over the years. Jerry and I don't know if you remember this episode, but there was a doctor who let the world know that Jerry had the largest penis he had ever seen. And just so you know, the way how that came to be was one of the writers was next to me at the urinal. And let's just say he was inspired. I don't know. Is that a secret? Is it out there for the world to know? Whatever. Take that as you will. But no, as far as the hidden talent, wow. I can watch endless hours of television and not get up and go to the bathroom. Is that a talent? Is that I can eat absorbent amounts of food while watching said television? Is that a talent? Yeah, no. Sadly, Greg, I have none. I think I have no hidden talents other than I have a very large tongue. A very large tongue. And so it's a talent in only one area.
All right. Sounds fantastic.
We're
We're going to go. This is really going into let's do a little bit more. So go, Greg, with your final question.
Sure. That's awesome, Jim. Now that I can stop laughing. Tell me, Jim, serious now for a sec. What do you feel is the most important thing in life you've ever learned?
Wow, a couple things. Number one, don't take it all so serious. Oh boy, when I think about younger and certain relationships and jealousies that I look back now and go, oh, what a waste of time that was, and what a waste of anxiety, and yeah, just let some stuff just roll off. Also, as far as showbiz goes, if we want to go in that area, Amy Poehler taught me a very important lesson, and it's the word no. The word no is really important. We have to watch out for ourselves, whether it's our emotional state, our financial state, our work environment, whatever. The word no is really powerful. And because of Amy, I've made some really smart choices by saying the word no. I'm a people pleaser by nature, I think to a default and to my detriment. So I have gotten better about that because you don't have to please everybody. Not that you can be selfish. I'm not a selfish dude, but I've learned that it doesn't always have to be about everybody else. It can be about me sometimes. So I think that's an important lesson.
All right. Jim, we really appreciate it. Best place people can connect with you. Where can they go?
Their book. Oh, the book. Welcome to Pawnee. Stories of Friendship, Waffles, and Parks and Recreation. That's everywhere. That came out last November. We made a bunch of the bestseller list. The paperback. We're going to be promoting the paperback soon, which is awesome. If nothing else, if you like Parks and Rec and you don't want to read a book, get it for no other reason than the cover. The cover of the book is pretty amazing. I take very little credit for it because I'm not an artist, but what they did with the cover of the book for fans of the show, I've had people say to me they bought two books, one for me to sign and one to take the cover and frame it. It's that amazing. So yeah, and then I'm on the socials, Facebook, on Instagram. I think it's The Real Jim O'Heir because people steal people's names. I don't know why they do that. But The Real Jim O'Heir. Yeah, I'm out there doing my thing.
Well, we appreciate it, Jim. Thanks again.
This was fun, you guys. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.